Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you I have a Gunner Heat PC video. Going to talk a little bit about the most recent update, plus I'm also going to talk about some of the previous updates because it's been a while since I've done an update video for Gunner Heat PC, kind of showcasing some of the stuff that's come to Gunner Heat PC. First thing I want to cover though is, folks, this game is being developed by Patreon subscribers. So go check out their website, seek additional information about Gunner Heat PC. Also, check out their Patreon. It's the APC tier, which is the $3 a month. Will get you access to Gunner Heat PC. It'll give you full access to the Gunner Heat PC. So go ahead, check that out. There's also some additional videos, not just on my YouTube, but on other YouTube channels as well. So plenty of footage out there to make a deciding factor if you want to back this project. It's definitely an interesting project as it keeps getting more and more towards the simulator. It's not quite a full simulator, but it's leaning towards being a simulator, as well as the fact that it's just nice to see how they're developing this, how things are unraveling, how things have been improving, especially even since my very first encounter of Gunner Heat PC, and so on and so forth. But let's dive on in here. I'm going to talk a little bit. First off, this is the Ural. Now the Ural has multiple boxes. You see the enclosed box here. The enclosed box can either have an open flap or a closed flap, or it could not have that canvas cover at all on the box. It'll just be the box itself. Of course, because the game is still in development, the interior's not really done. That's not really a big deal, though, because the Ural is more or less in the game right now to be mission objectives. Hitting convoys and things of that nature. Kind of goes back to some of the previous Gunner Heat PC guide videos I did. They did a pretty good job, though, in the sounds, the way it drives, the way it feels. You know, it feels like you're driving a big, heavy truck that... well, it's got a powerful engine, but it doesn't move very fast. That's kind of the Ural. They've also added the BMP-1, but I'm going to dive more into the BMP-1 here in a bit. Other things they've added over time since the last time I did an update video. One thing they've added is crew voiceovers, which the docile tones of the Mighty One himself is actually the loader for the U.S. crews. Now, that being said, there's still more crew voices to come, more crew lines to come, things of that nature. Which actually I'm showcasing some of the lines here with the M1 Abrams. Other things they've added some randomization to the missions themselves. So now, mission forces, a while ago, I think about 4 months or so back, missions were set standardized forces. So essentially, when you looked at your mission profile, it's like, oh, well, this mission will spawn an enemy force of 8 T-72s. Now, with the randomization generator, it might spawn anywhere from 5 to 8 T-72s. That's the randomization they've added. That also adds the replayability because it kind of changes how the mission's played each time, what kind of forces you're going to be going up against, things of that nature. They've also added some new missions over time as well. They've also improved and added vegetation to the game. They've added more vegetation. They've improved it. Now, back onto the Ural here. We're going to start talking about the most recent update. The Ural does have a Ural has a damage model, and it can be damaged. I actually tested it out by shooting it with 50 cal, which is why it was smoking. The BMP-1, or BIMP, when I was in the service, we used to call it a BIMP. The BIMP also has a damage model. Now, the interesting thing is the BIMP is the first IFV to be added that has an ATGM launcher. And that being said, it is also the first amphibious vehicle added to Gunner Heat PC. Now, it is not the first ATGM-based vehicle, as we already have the M901 Angry Wally. Sorry, improved tow vehicle. So we do actually have vehicles currently that does have ATGM launchers, which those are wire guided. The BMP is actually radio guided. I'll get into that here in a bit when I would show off the BMP. And realistically, I might be missing some things. I know there's been some balance changes made as well when it comes to Gunner Heat PC. But generally speaking, that's really about it for major stuff. Now I'm showing off the BMP here. Going to show off how it looks first. Also show off how it looks at night. Now it does not seem to currently have a functional infrared sight. However, the BMP does have an infrared optic. So you can use other tanks' infrared searchlights as well, which is actually probably better for this vehicle, to be honest, because I've dived into the past about how there's a possibility of being spotted while using an infrared searchlight. And then, of course, this vehicle doesn't have armor. And actually, this vehicle, I had mentioned the BMP in a previous video, but it's finally here. It's finished, or at least mostly finished enough that it's usable. Now, there is, when it comes to the ATGM launcher, there is no reload animation. That being said, there is at least a reload sound. The 73 millimeter low pressure gun does work, sort of. I mean, it's a 73 millimeter low pressure gun. You know, it works about as good as you could really hope for what the gun is. And it actually does fire heat ammunition, although I think there's also high explosive as well. There is not a kinetic, that I'm aware of, there's not a kinetic penetrator for the BMP-1, mostly because, well, it's got a low pressure gun, which means it's got a low velocity. It's not relying on velocity to destroy its targets as much as it is relying on a chemical charge in something like a heat round. And I'm also going to fire it off here a little bit so you can also hear the gun sounds. Now, one thing that sucks about the BMP-1, and I knew it was going to suck about the BMP-1, is the gun depression is absolutely rubbish. Literally absolutely rubbish. There's the Soviets, I guess they're not very depressed people. Okay, their tanks aren't depressed. Maybe they're depressed. I'm not sure. Either ways, let's dive on into it. We're going to just drive around some more so you can hear the engine sounds, see how it drives. It does drive pretty good. I'm actually very pleased on how it drives, how it handles. You know, it feels like an IFV. It feels like it can maneuver around fairly well. Now, that being said, I don't recall what the top speed is of the BMP. I actually don't think it's really that fast. I mean, I believe it's actually faster than an M113, but it's not going to win a race with an M1 Abrams. Although, also that being said, the M1 Abrams is also the most advanced tank that we currently have in game, up until Action Scripter decides to give us a Leopard 2. Oh no, actually, M1 Abrams is still newer than Leopard 2. Not by much. Going to drive around here just a little bit more. I mean, it's pretty good. I like the suspension model. I like how it drives. I like how it sounds. Honestly, the driving sounds amazing. The way the tracks sound, the way the engine sounds, so on and so forth. And we're going to pop a couple shots here off at the M60 really quick. Now, it is pretty effective against the M60. It's not so effective against the M1 Abrams, though. But, yeah, composite armor. And that's what happens when you don't have composite armor. All right. Let's get to the range and show you the ATGM. Let's see if I can actually hit anything with the damn ATGM. Now, first, I'm going to try to sight it. Now, what I had issues trying to maneuver the turret while I had the ATGM selected. I'm not sure if you can, and maybe it was operator error, but from what I can tell, no, you cannot traverse the turret or aim the gun or anything while you are running, have the ATGM ready to fire. Now, it is radio controlled. It's not wired guided. So with a tow missile, the tow missile's wire guided. So it's essentially reliant on a movement in the system itself. And then the as you move the system, it turns the wire in different directions. Well, it pulls the wire in different directions, and that's how it's aimed. Here, it's sending a radio signal to the missile. The other thing that's really tough, and honestly, I think it's pretty realistic, but I hope it improves in the future, is it is really hard to see essentially the fire, the flame, if you will, of the missile itself. I mean, there's actually points where I completely lose track of where the missile went, and I'm heavily reliant on trying to use the smoke to guide the missile. And as you can see, oh, I am absolutely rubbish with this missile. I'm good with the tows. I'm not so good with this. I'm also good with the Fagot, the other ATGM launcher that the Soviets has. That's just an infantry launcher for now. Is it going to hit? It's looking good. Oh, and I actually got it. Look at that, folks. I'm so proud of myself. I actually got the thing. But anyway, folks, I'm going to actually wrap this Gunner Heat PC video up at that. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Learned a couple things about Gunner Heat PC. Got to see the new updates of Gunner Heat PC. Things of that nature. Anyway, folks, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. And have yourself a wonderful day.